Take a flood from anybody.
And we're back. I'm your host, BKP. Good morning from beautiful downtown Blue Ridge, Sycamore Crossing. I'm now joined, we missed you last week, but I'm glad to have you back. I'm now joined with Dr. Whaley. Dr. Whaley, glad to have you back this morning.
Well, thanks. Last week I was at the beach in New Jersey with 7 grandkids. I looked at the map of the mosquitoes before I went, and it ends down around Delaware. So we didn't have to worry about mosquito repellent or going out in the yard and turning over the flower pots and making the place mosquito free, and nobody worried about the Zika virus in New Jersey for a whole week.
Well, you know what, we have rapidly, things move rapidly, and we've gone from the mosquito is this pesky bug, but now it's we have the Zika, and now you and I discussed this a couple weeks ago, and the reason we're bringing this back up, we're going to follow up a little bit on the Zika virus this morning, is the last time you guys, you and I talked, we had one born case in the U.S.
One confirmed mosquito transmitted case.
Right, in the United States.
That's right.
Now we're rapidly seeing that number increase.
Correct.
And it is within right now a square mile that I understand in the Miami area or maybe around that area.
Yes. Correct.
And you have been asked, and so have I, about traveling, cruises, and what's going on. So update us a little bit, bring us up to date from 2 weeks ago, some of the concerns and the Zika virus.
2 weeks ago, the way you got information as a medical professional is you went on the CDC website. Every day at 2 o'clock, the state of Florida issues a brand new report. There was one case confirmed 2 weeks ago. They're now something in the neighborhood of 12, 15, right. 17. We can argue about it, but it's gone up by a magnitude of 1,000% in 2 weeks. It was started out Miami-Dade County only. It's now Miami-Dade County and that next county, I've forgotten what it is, but I looked at the map this morning, and that gets all of Miami from the airport down to the end of South Beach, and then the next county above it gets all of Miami up through Hollywood, Florida, and Fort Lauderdale. All of that is considered at risk because of the number of positive cases in both counties. So it's the area, the major concern is that 1 square mile. But the county north that goes to Hollywood has like 4 cases out of 50 of asymptomatic people that they have tested. Now the thing about it is, we're worried about pregnant women.
Right.
There's our train.
Yes.
I love it.
The all aboard.
We got all aboard. This is typical downtown Blue Ridge. If you've never been here, you got to come. You got to go to the train. You got to do what he says. We got 7 good restaurants up and down the street.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we got gorgeous shops here. People don't recognize. You got to come here. And school started today. You're right. Well, anyway, let's go back here. So, across the world, in the last 10 years, there have been population studies in Micronesia, in Puerto Rico, where they just went out and test 100 guys walking down the street. The percentage of people that are positive for the virus is about 4%. Now, everything that the Florida Department of Public Health has put up, 3 cases out of 56, well, that's 3%. 6 out of 100, that's 6%. It averages out about 4% of healthy people, no idea they got the Zika virus. Now, once you're in a location where you've got the mosquito and you've got the healthy person with the Zika virus, the Florida Public Health Service, here is their official recommendation. Women who are pregnant or thinking of becoming pregnant, postpone travel to areas with widespread Zika infection. Florida's small case cluster is not considered widespread transmission. However, government word, pregnant women are advised to avoid non-essential travel in Miami-Dade County if you are pregnant or must travel to or if you live or work in the impacted area, protect yourself from mosquito bites by wearing insect repellent, long clothing, and limiting your time outdoors. Well, that was in the news 2 days ago. And yesterday I had two separate people who said, I'm going on a cruise. We're leaving out of Fort Lauderdale, we're leaving out of Miami. What do we do? Well, I don't think you worry about anything. I mean, number one, they're not pregnant, they're people in our age group. You go get on your cruise. But it put me to thinking about all of these consultants and these women in their 20s and 30s who fly into Miami every week and work down there 4 or 5 days for a bank and are staying in a hotel and
Absolutely.
walking out in the streets. And those people really do have to stop and think. The 41, 51 cases in our military, they're all childbearing age. 6 of those are women. 1 of them's pregnant. I mean, they're out there serving us on the front line, worried about getting shot. You know, I got encephalitis in Vietnam. Oh, if you got Zika virus in Panama or in Nicaragua or somewhere and transmitted it to your wife, and she came home and had a birth defect baby, that's an adverse impact of your military service. What's what VA going to do about it? I mean, now you got the idea that people who are in good health and live in Miami-Dade County go to donate blood. Every community needs a huge amount of donated blood. Well, the recommendations that they put out yesterday are that you consider not accepting material for kidney transplant, heart transplant, any other sort of transplant, or blood from the area of Zika virus, which is all of Miami all the way up to Fort Lauderdale. I mean, this is just week 2. So that's what that's the kind of the unrecognized toll of an epidemic if the Zika virus gets much of a foothold. The other thing people ask me is, what am I supposed to do to protect myself? Interestingly enough, the Florida Public Health recommendation for cleaning up your yard says that a bottle cap, Coca-Cola cap, with 3 drops of water in it is a breeding place for the virus. So when you think you go outside and you've turned up all the empty tires and you've taken all your potted plants and you've turned over that little bowl at the bottom, which you have to do every week and clean the water, and you've got taken your bird bath and you've just taken it out of your yard, and you've done all that sort of stuff, that little bottle cap is still there. So the next people say, well, what if I get my yard sprayed? I'll get the guy to spray my yard. Well, CDC put out a thing the other day that the yard spraying for a small lawn is $100. It has to be repeated weekly. For a yard that is big as this place here is $1,000, would have to be repeated weekly. And it is not recommended because it would allow the emergence of insect-resistant mosquitoes that would then have a population of super mosquitoes that you couldn't spray. Okay, well, what am I going to do if I got my kids out in the backyard this weekend? I will be at the lake. Don't have to worry in Blue Ridge. We haven't got the problem here, but if I was going to be down there in Florida with my kids on the beach, will Yard Guard do any good? Well, yeah, Yard Guard will do good for the space that you're right around. You put out your little citronella candles, you lather up with the mosquito repellent, but nothing's 100%. So to eradicate the mosquito is a real effort. Miami-Dade is going to start air spraying, I think, today.
Yeah, I seen that. I seen the video that they're going through yards with these fogger sprays.
Right, but they're going to go from the air now.
Now they're going from the air.
But now that's great, but it is only limitedly effective. If you think about where they really are that you can't get them, is the primary place, in addition to the pond that's contaminated, is trees and bushes. Well, look at Florida. I mean, it's just all trees and bushes. And the spray that comes down doesn't penetrate the middle of the spray of the tree or the bush. And so there's going to be something in the neighborhood of 15 to 30% of all the mosquitoes in an acre that you're not going to get by spraying from the air, having Orkin come spray the ground, or putting out the Yard Guard. So regardless of what you've done or what's been done in your community, you got to lather up with an effective insect repellent. And as we said 2 weeks ago, best way to do that is to go on Consumer Reports that list them, because none of the ones that I found at the drugstore were the top 3. So I'm not going to try and tell you what the ones are. I don't remember.
What's the CDC's concern on, or what's their stance on how they recommend to contain this, slow the rate of growth, and also stop this from coming in from other countries? I mean, what are those 3 things that was of high concern?
That's very interesting. One, there is no way to stop it from coming in for other countries. This will go back to the AIDS epidemic. This is easy to understand. If I give you a tetanus shot in this arm, and I draw blood from your opposite arm for a tetanus antibody, it's not there. If I draw it in 3 days, it's not there. In 2 weeks, it is. Now just imagine you've been bitten by the Zika mosquito, and you've got the virus in your blood, and they tested everybody that came into the United States by urine, saliva, or blood for the Zika virus.
Very easily not recognized.
Very easily. They couldn't do it. I mean, that'd be a violation of privacy and everything else.
Right.
But it wouldn't get you. You'd still be negative. And that's why you can't go donate blood in a mosquito-bearing area, even if you're negative, because if you were bitten yesterday or the day before, you're harboring the virus. So once the HIV epidemic was well understood, they excluded the populations that were likely to have HIV from the blood banking pool, and then me and you, your blood's tested for hepatitis and HIV and everything else, and they don't use our blood until it's tested negative. And that just has eliminated the blood bank passing of the HIV. Well, if you come into the country with the Zika virus, it's not the blood bank that you're worried about, it's the mosquito. And so I don't believe that you'll be able to limit the number of people traveling to this country who carry the virus. So the second thing is, how do you eradicate the vector? Well, that vector is the mosquito. And that really is, everybody in the neighborhood has to go and do the same thing to their yard, because if my yard is clean as I can get it, I've got everything turned over, and you got a bunch of stuff in yours, the mosquito virus, the mosquito has a geography of life of 150 meters on the radius. So the diameter is 300 meters. That's a little longer than 3 football fields from where he's born to where he travels in his lifespan. So you got to have a whole, your yard's not 3 football fields wide.
Right.
Even if yours is 2 football fields wide, you got it all cleaned out and the guy next door doesn't, you're not safe. So the most effective thing, and everybody seizes on it, is personal protection. In the daytime, long sleeve shirts, long trousers, lather up your face, your hands, and all exposed areas with an effective mosquito repellent. They make a mosquito repellent with SPF 50 on it. You'll get really rich, I guess, if you could put the sunscreen and mosquito pellet on together in one preparation. I'm sure there'd be a huge. Somebody needs to think of that. And if you do, I want 5% of the profits. And the other is
we wrote that down.
Limit the amount of time that you spend out of doors in the early morning and after the late afternoon, because that mosquito gets out more in the morning and more in the late afternoon. But they're out at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So really, the thing is, limit your time outside, lather yourself up real good, and dress inappropriately for the beach. I mean, who wears a long sleeve shirt and a pair of long pants at the beach? Nobody. So what they recommend to you, although it sounds easy, is not terribly practical.
Well, it's funny you say that, because just yesterday I was having a conversation with someone, and when we were kids, we didn't even know what shoes were in the summertime or shirts. We had pair of shorts was it, and we was gone out the door, and Mom, we said, "See you later," and well, we played all day long, didn't think about anything. And now the sun and concerns with mosquitoes and so many different things. I mean,
how did we get to this age without a bike helmet, without without seat belts? I mean, I'm not trying to get
well, you know, I
political,
will say this.
but
I don't want to get sidetracked. I
Yeah.
encourage safety first. I encourage
do.
safety first. I really do in all matters. I used to have a lot of trucks and truck drivers, and we'd do safety talks every Monday morning. I encourage safety. But, you know, the signs that say baby on board, I'm okay with that. But I think back in the 60s and 70s, it should have said baby in the back window, because there was five of us kids, and my youngest sister always get up in the back window.
slept on that
So
ledge
we better
back
not.
there.
Don't try that at
Yeah,
home.
well, they don't
Don't
have
try
back
that.
ledges anymore.
But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly, and slept on the floorboard.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's.
I would tell you this
that's two
because
old
but
people
it's funny. But let's do it anyway. Nothing any better. There was five of us kids, so there's nothing any better than when a 9-hour trip when Dad bought Oldsmobile Toronado front-wheel drive. Because what did that mean? That's your test.
Yeah,
what did
you
the hump was gone.
You didn't have a hump.
The hump was gone. You could actually lay down.
Actually, sleeping over the hump was pretty much fun. It was warm.
We got to move.
It was warm.
We got to move.
Let's put to rest the real big concern that I got this week, and that was I am traveling to Miami and I'm going on a cruise. I think there's no problem with that. And if you want to go into the middle of Dade County, Florida, and go around without a shirt, and you're our age, and you're not having sexual relations with a childbearing woman, have a good time. Because at the end of the day, it's not whether I get the Zika virus or not. It's whether I pass the Zika virus on to somebody that's likely to transmit it sexually to a woman who is of childbearing age. Otherwise, it makes no difference whatsoever. But the recommendations of the CDC now, the way they have been written, say that these athletes that are going to Rio, men, should avoid from having unprotected sex. Now, that doesn't mean unprotected sex now doesn't mean contraception for pregnancy. It means for disease transmission. So that's not birth control pills, that's condoms.
Right.
For 6 months with a female, because you can have that Zika virus in the semen for 6 months. And birth control pills do not protect against sexually transmitted diseases. So
That's what I call really trying to win the gold.
So Zika is.
if you go down there and try to win the gold medal and it's 6 months.
But anyway, Zika is a sexually transmitted disease.
I got two things. We're going to run out of time. I got two things.
Oh, we can't run out of time.
We can't.
No, we got to go lower because we got to talk about that.
That's what I was getting ready to
talk about
say.
that poor medical marijuana thing.
Right.
Go ahead,
You
all
wanted it. You said you had a couple
it.
things you want to update on medical marijuana.
Go ahead. We get
And
back to
then
Zika.
the last thing I wanted to say before we leave today is I want to ask you about the Olympics, because I know you have been involved in the past when it was in Atlanta. But medical marijuana, you wanted to highlight some things. We've been talking about that for several weeks. What did you have this morning?
We have focused our discussions on the legitimate use of marijuana THC oil primarily in neurological situations under controlled circumstances. We're all for it. The medical profession is for it. But twice in the last week, I have had patients as old as I or older who are in the office with young family who say, well, mama's not really eating like she should. We're going to bring her some pot to smoke, or we're going to make her some pot brownies. Is that okay? My recommendation is I wouldn't do that. One, that really is illegal. Two, where that's been experimentally looked at, people who have no prior exposure to drugs of that type have an undesirable degree of side effects. And third, we don't have the foggiest idea if it does any good. So I don't want the adolescents who are using pot to go to Granny and say, I've got some for you, and hope that her use of it will affirm the
So we're not
you using it. We're not saying anything about what we've talked about before. I just don't want people thinking they can smoke pot and make marijuana brownies for Granny.
Well, we're not encouraging it as something to increase appetite. We're not saying that.
No, we're not. there's a drug for that,
Right.
Marinol, and they
Exactly.
can write a prescription for that. It's a
Exactly.
legitimate medical situation. I'm talking about family treating family, and the people that are recommending it, all of them are under 20. And it seems to me they may be trying to get Granny to smoke pot so that it's okay for them to smoke pot at home, if you get what I'm getting. I just don't want to encourage that.
Yeah, I guess I want to. Yeah, I'm with you on that. But I could see that. But they think Granny's having trouble with appetite, so if she would just
Yeah, eat a brownie.
or hit a bowl every once in a while, she may want you to
That's
stop
right.
and get Cheetos at the grocery store.
That's correct. That's
Yeah.
exactly
Okay.
what
Well,
I'm
now we're going to stay away from that.
saying. Yeah. we
Okay.
are. All right. Go ahead.
I appreciate
We'll
that.
come back to the Olympics.
All right. Well, no, you go ahead because
Okay.
we're
All
going to
right.
wrap up with the Olympics. I
Okay,
want to
all
hear
right,
it.
all right. Well, 2 weeks ago, my wife and I had the opportunity to be at the 20th anniversary of the Olympics, and we were there with Billy Payne and A.D. Frazier. I was A.D. Frazier's troubleshooter for the Olympics. It is probably in the world the greatest amalgamation of countries that don't get along in a fashion to create goodwill. As I can recall, we had Pakistanis. You're going to find 4 Saudi women dressed in their outfits doing judo and track at this Olympics. You can't put a price on that. I mean, that's people that in the future are going to be in government. They're going to create some relationships that'll carry them forward and it'll be worthwhile. The opening ceremonies are always a great show. If you're interested, that's watch that.
I will
And
admit, I like to see what everybody's wearing. The team comes in, look
Right.
at team this, they got
But,
their flags. And I could agree with
I'm
that.
a frustrated athlete. I am real interested in the 100-meter dash. I'm real interested in the 4x100 relay. And I got to watch those at the Olympics. We saw the girl break her ankle as they won the gold medal for the gymnastics. And they were at this celebration we had. So it's a wonderful, uplifting time. I am just very disappointed that Rio is the place it's going to be. We were in Rio less than 6 months ago, and the water where they're going to be doing the rowing and so forth has got garbage floating in it.
I seen that report
And
this morning.
the rooms apparently, and this is, I hate to vast it, but out of 20 toilets in the place where they had one group of Olympians staying, only 3 would flush. So these athletes will be fine. It's like college kids. I mean,
Right.
you throw them a sheet and a hamburger, and they can sleep on the ground. So the basketball team gets put up at the Four Seasons, and the basketball players have their own massage therapists and their own nutritionists, and they try to take really good care of them. In fact, they send them a list, say, who are you going to bring with you? You bring in your own security, you bring in your own dietitian, you bring in your own, and they'll take care of it, because these are all NBA players. But the poor guy that plays second on the tennis team, or the number 4 guy in the 4x100 relay, he's struggled to get here. This is the pinnacle of his career and his whole life, and he's going to be sleeping in a lumpy bed and probably walking down the hall to flush the toilet. It isn't going to bother him a bit, because he's going to be on that track, and he's going to do what he's been trying to get to do for 18 to 25 years. It's going to be the best day of their life, and we ought to watch it.
Troubleshooting in Atlanta, like what was that? What did you do as far as when you say troubleshooting?
Well, AD, when you get AD on here, he'll love to tell you this story. The morning of the opening of the Olympics was after the opening ceremony, and I went home and I went to bed at about 3:30 in the morning, and Jane says that I said I have to get up in 20 minutes, and I got up in 20 minutes and went to work. AD met with Samaranch at 7 a.m. The Olympics athletic events were supposed to start at 9, and the 2 baseball teams, I think it was Nicaragua and Cuba, were not on the field of play. Now, there have been Olympic events that have been postponed because of bad weather and terrorism,
Right.
but never because the teams didn't show. And so Samaranch said, something's wrong with athlete transportation, fix it. So as AD walked out of that room, he turned to me and he said, Bill, something's wrong with athlete transportation, fix it. Well, I had a team. I had a helicopter, I had 2 police cars, I had 5 corrections officers and stuff. And the reason that AD got me was I had nothing to do with constructing the infrastructure. So I had nothing in the paradigm. I could see it from a view that nobody in the Olympics could see it, because they all have been watching it for 4 or 5 years. And the thing about that, the transportation was, I went back and I looked, and all the test events, everything had run smoothly. Well, when they did the test events, the Olympic Village had 4 exits. Because of security, once they opened the Olympics, the team left by another entrance, which increased the time it took to get to Atlanta Fulton County Stadium and to what we now call Turner Field by about 18 minutes. Well, when you start then going and coming and going and coming, that adds up to 36 minutes and then 72 minutes, and the things just fell apart. So it took me a day and a half to get that figured out. I didn't go to bed. When that was over, I went back in and I took a shower, and I didn't go home. And the AD came out and says the rowers are not arriving at Lake Lanier. And that...
You just finished this.
Yeah, but I hadn't been to bed yet. I hadn't been to bed yet. And I went into that one. It was a little bit easier. So I flew out there in the helicopter, and I got the bus drivers. Well, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. I got the venue coordinators. When I went down to where the buses left, I flew back into where the buses are kept and started going through the records. All of those test events were done with Greyhound-type buses. We didn't have the funds for Greyhound-type buses, so the Olympic events were using school buses. School buses topped out at 45 miles an hour.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say.
So that was not 70, and it was the difference in the amount of speed that the bus was able to make from the Olympic Village to Lake Lanier that over the course of about 6 hours, that extra 30 minutes added up to several hours, and then suddenly the event couldn't start because there were no rowers there. That took another full day. So now you're in day 3, and I still haven't been to bed. And I went back home. Jane brought me some clothes and a razor blade and stuff, and I went back and took a nap, and the next one was gymnastics. And that went on for 6 days.
Well, let me ask you, concerning
After that, though, I went to a lot of events.
Knowing the inside of that, how concerned are you with Rio, or what are you hearing? Do you still hear things, considering you've been involved before, or how concerned are you with Rio, knowing the inside workings?
Well, as I say, we were there with the people from Rio were at this party we were at. The people from Los Angeles, the people that are making the Olympic bids for the future were there. You never know what the problem's going to be until it happens. And so nobody has any concern about folks getting where they're getting. The things that they're worried about are where they're sleeping and the toilets flushing. And I say kids will get over that. That won't be an issue. They got all the people worried about the Zika virus. That won't be an issue. For the athletes, that won't be an issue. I think on the field of play, you're going to have a great Olympics.
What are your favorite events at the Olympics that you?
Well, I love gymnastics because I've got a granddaughter that's a gymnast. I love swimming. I used to swim competitively, but I was a marathon runner, so I love track and field.
Now, do you like the Summer Olympics opposed to the Winter? Or
yes, and as you know, I was a doctor.
You do know the Winter Olympics has the most exciting event ever.
Hockey.
No, no, curling.
Curling. Yeah. Well, actually, I like curling because we could.
What was so funny? That's the most exciting. I mean, the brooms, the intensity, the rock, the precision.
We could do that.
Holy smokes!
You don't have to weigh. You don't have to be 7% body fat.
I do like the gymnastics. I do like the events showcase the hard work that these young athletes put into this.
Yeah,
it really does.
And you're going to see people with stories that just break your heart.
Good stories.
And
worldwide, I agree with you.
And so I think all that's perfect.
Except for the Russians, I think they're on the plane back home.
Yeah, well, there are a few that are there. But I was involved in that too. So
we're going to have to.
All right.
We're going to have to.
Dr. Whaley's over at 8:45.
Yeah, we got to go. You have to get to work.
I do.
We don't want you late for work.
I don't want to be late for work.
We appreciate it. We thank you for every week coming by.
We really do. Please, if you will, just let us know what you want to talk about.
Anything throughout the week. Now we'll put this out. We have not put it out like we should, but we'll put it out over FetcherNews.com, the Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter at FetcherNews. If you have anything that you want to talk about with Dr. Whaley here on Friday mornings at 8:15, send it to us. I'm your host, BKP.
And in the Walmart, if you hear my voice, people stop and say, "Oh, you're the guy on Fetcher News. I recognize your voice."
Yes, exactly. We'll be back after these brief messages. We're at the shops at Sycamore Cross, and we might talk a little politics when we come back. You never know. Take us to break.